Rise from the wrist, orchestral mind, to a clear expanse. Perform your high dance on the clouds of ancestral duty. Hawk at the wraith of remembered emotions. Vindicate our high notions of a new and pitiless faith. It is not without risk. In a lofty attempt, the fool makes a brisk tumble. Rightly contempt rewards the cloud-foot unwary, who falls to the prairie. Now, why am I calling this an Ars Poetica? I suppose it comes from what we know about Ern Malley. We know that he was trying to do something new. We know he was obsessed with poetry that didn't do what the tradition did. And in this poem, he says, hawk at the wraith of remembered emotions, vindicate our high notions of a new and pitiless faith. So his new and pitiless faith is the faith of modernist poetry, of trying to do something new. As Ezra Pound said, make it new. That was the catch cry of modernist poetry that Ern Malley would have been very familiar with and probably would have cried out himself. So what are we doing? At first he's doing a sort of traditional way of starting a poem, right? He's almost invocating the muse like they did in the ancient Greek and ancient Roman poetry. Rise from the wrist, at the start of ancient Greek and Roman poems, epic poems, they would say, they would make a call to the muses to fill them with inspiration to write this poem. So here he's saying, rise from the wrist, orchestral mind. So he's actually invoking his own mind in the form of orchestral, a bird. And he's saying, rise from the wrist. He's writing this poem. He's writing in the 40s, right? He's writing this poem with a pen and paper. He's using his wrist to write it, and he's telling it, rise from the wrist, orchestral mind, to a clear expanse, soar in the sky, perform your high dance on the clouds of ancestral duty. So he's saying, I have a duty. He has this talent, this poetic talent. He has this talent, and he has to use it. He has a duty to use it. Based on everything he knows about the English poetic tradition, it's his duty to use this talent. That's what all the poets from the past would be telling him. Even though he is someone who wants to break with the tradition, he's still following that duty. He still finds it important because he loves all of those poets, even if he wants to break from them. Hawk at the wraith of remembered emotions. What is the wraith of remembered emotions? That is a direct reference to Romanticism, definitely a direct reference to Wordsworth, I'm sure, who Malley probably really didn't like. Most of the modernists did not like Wordsworth. Let me just get the quote that he is presumably referring to, a very famous quote. Poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotion recollected in tranquility. Emotions recollected in tranquility. So that is what Wordsworth claimed poetry was, and that is what the modernists were very much reacting against, because when they were children, the Romantics were, and Wordsworth was, the dominant force. They were considered the greatest thing that had ever happened to the English language, other than Shakespeare maybe. And they were saying what poetry is it's the overflow of feelings, of emotions from experiences you've had. And Malley is saying, no, I'm a modernist. Hawk at the wraith of remembered emotions. Vindicate our high notions, that's us the modernists, of a new and pitiless faith. That is a faith that removes emotion, a faith that doesn't just replicate experiences in tranquility, but tries to do something more deeper. It focuses more on thoughts and abstract concepts and doing things that are beyond what we've actually experienced in real life. It is not without risk, though. I mean, inevitably, if you're doing something new, it's with risk. You've got to take a risk if you want to do something new. It is not without risk. In a lofty attempt, the fool makes a brisk tumble. Rightly contempt rewards the cloud-foot unwary, who falls to the prairie. So he's sort of referring to himself here, right? He understands that he's going to try to do some new stuff, and he's going to fail a bit. But that's better than not. That's better than not trying, right? In a lofty attempt. It's a lofty attempt, lofty, a high, it's a high attempt. It's a good thing. He's doing his duty to his ancestors. He's trying to fly into the sky, but the fool makes a brisk tumble. He makes a failure. And rightly contempt rewards the cloud-foot unwary who falls to the prairie. Because it's still, if you fail, you fail. It still deserves contempt. It's still a bad try. You can try again, but you've got to accept that attempt was a failure. And in the modernist history of the 1910s and 20s and 30s and 40s, yeah, there were a lot of failures. There were a lot of failures, but they also discovered a lot of new stuff. The fool makes a brisk tumble. Rightly contempt rewards the cloud-foot unwary who falls to the prairie. So you'll notice if you count up the lines, this does have the traditional sonnet turn. He's originally doing this highfalutin sort of declaring that he wants his inspiration to fly out and destroy the romantic notions of of all of this stuff and do something great and modern. And then on the 9th line, the turn, he says, it is not without risk. That's when he pulls it down and he says, okay, we're going to collapse. We're going to fall to the ground just like Icarus. We've tried to fly, but we're failing. It is not without risk. In a lofty attempt, the fool makes a brisk tumble. Rightly contempt rewards the cloud-foot unwary who falls to the prairie.